Out there, on the open ocean, can you imagine it? Waves stretching to the horizon, nothing but blue all around. Now picture yourself stuck there, lost, alone. That's what José Salvador Alvarenga faced. This isn't some made-up story, this is real life. José's story, a story of survival against impossible odds. José was a fisherman. He knew the ocean. He'd been fishing since he was young. It was in his blood. On November 17, 2012, he set out from Costa Azul, Mexico. Just another day's work. He had a partner with him, Ezequiel. They were going to catch sharks, fish, whatever they could find. The plan was simple: fish, return home. A routine trip. But the ocean is unpredictable. A storm hit, a big one. Waves crashed over their small boat. The engine died. They were at the mercy of the sea. Hours passed, then days. No land in sight. They were adrift and in trouble. The storm raged for days. José and Ezequiel clung to their small boat. Waves tossed them around like a toy. They were soaked to the bone, shivering with cold. Fear gnawed at their insides. They were lost, truly lost. When the storm finally passed, the sun beat down mercilessly. Their skin burned. Thirst tortured them. They had no water, no food, nothing but the clothes on their backs and a few fishing supplies. Days turned into weeks. The vastness of the Pacific surrounded them. They saw nothing but water. Endless blue water. Hunger gnawed at their bellies. They had to find food. Using their bare hands, they snatched at fish. Sometimes they got lucky. Most times they went hungry. They ate raw fish, guts and all. Anything to survive. Rain became their lifeline. They caught it in their mouths, in anything they could find. It was never enough. The sun sucked the moisture from their bodies, leaving them parched and weak. Ezequiel, younger and less experienced, began to lose hope. One day, a miracle happened. A large sea turtle, caught off guard, surfaced near their boat. José, with a burst of energy born of desperation, managed to haul it aboard. It was a gift, a lifeline. The turtle's blood, thick and metallic, quenched their thirst. Its meat, tough but nourishing, provided them with much-needed sustenance. They ate like men possessed, knowing that this might be their last meal for days. The turtle gave them more than just food, it gave them hope. The vast Pacific, once a source of livelihood for José, had become his tormentor. Each sunrise brought another day of scorching sun, relentless hunger, and gnawing thirst. The ocean, so full of life, mocked them with its bounty, holding back the sustenance they so desperately craved. Fishing with their hands yielded meager results. The fish, once so plentiful, seemed to avoid them, sensing their desperation. Hunger gnawed at their insides, a constant, painful reminder of their predicament. Rain, their only source of fresh water, became a cruel game played by the heavens. Days of scorching sun would be followed by fleeting moments of downpour. Ezequiel, young and strong just weeks before, was fading. He lay listlessly in the bottom of the boat, his eyes, once full of life, now clouded with despair. The fight, the will to survive, had seeped out of him, replaced by a quiet resignation. José, his heart heavy with dread, tried everything to rouse his friend. He shared his meager portions of food, offering words of encouragement, clinging to the hope that Ezequiel would find the strength to carry on. But the ocean, a cruel and unforgiving mistress, had claimed Ezequiel's spirit. One morning, José awoke to find his friend still, his chest no longer rising and falling with the rhythm of life. The ocean, which had brought them together, had now torn them apart, leaving José alone in his watery prison. Grief, raw and consuming, washed over José. Alone, utterly alone. The vastness of the ocean, once shared with Ezequiel, now mocked José's solitude. The silence, broken only by the lapping of the waves against the boat, was deafening, amplifying his loneliness. He was adrift, not only in the vast expanse of the Pacific, but also in the depths of his own despair. His mind, starved of human interaction, played tricks on him. He saw ships on the horizon, only to have them disappear into the haze. He heard voices, whispers carried on the wind, offering him false hope. He talked to himself, to Ezekiel's memory, to the fish he caught, anything to fill the void left by human companionship. He sang songs he barely remembered, recited prayers his grandmother had taught him, clinging to anything familiar. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. Jose, alone with the body of his friend, drifted further and further from everything he knew. The relentless sun beat down on him, baking his skin, reflecting off the endless blue of the ocean. He was trapped in a watery desert, surrounded by life but starved of its sustenance. He scavenged for food, his hands raw and bleeding. He caught fish, small and bony, with his bare hands, their flesh providing him with a meager reprieve from the gnawing hunger. He ate birds, landing on his boat, drawn to this strange speck in the vast emptiness. He drank rainwater when it fell, precious drops collected in a tattered piece of canvas. When the rain held back, he drank turtle blood, the metallic tang a grim reminder of the life he was taking to sustain his own. But Jose, a man tempered by the harsh realities of life on the open sea, refused to surrender. He clung to the memory of his daughter, her face a beacon of hope in the darkness that threatened to engulf him. He would see her again, he vowed. He would survive this ordeal, for her. He talked to himself, to the sun, to the birds that shared his watery home. He told himself stories, recounting his life, his dreams, his fears, anything to keep his mind active, to hold on to the last vestiges of his sanity. He marked the passing of time by the phases of the moon, each cycle a victory, a testament to his will to endure. He exercised his body, stretching his cramped muscles, keeping his limbs moving, fighting off the atrophy that threatened to claim him. The ocean, once his adversary, became his reluctant teacher. It taught him patience, the ability to wait, to endure. It taught him humility, the understanding that he was but a small part of a much larger world. It taught him resilience, the strength to face each day, no matter how bleak, with a glimmer of hope. He found solace in the rhythm of the waves, the cries of the seabirds, the silence of the star-filled nights. He learned to read the currents, to anticipate the winds, to navigate his small craft through the vastness of the Pacific. He drew strength from the memory of Ezekiel, his fallen comrade. He would honor his friend's memory by surviving. He would not let his friend's death be in vain. He would carry on for both of them. He was alone, yes, but he was not broken. The silence was deafening. Before, even in the worst moments of the storm, there had been another heartbeat on that small boat. Now it was just Jose, the creaking of the wood, and the slap of waves against the hull. The vastness of the Pacific had never felt so immense, so crushingly lonely. He found himself talking to the sky, to the circling seabirds, anything to fill the void left by Ezekiel. He would recount stories of his childhood, memories of his daughter's laughter, anything to hold on to the sound of a human voice, even if it was only in his own head. Sleep, when it came, offered little escape. Dreams, if you could call them that, were filled with Ezekiel's accusing eyes. The ocean, once a source of income and familiarity, now whispered threats. In the rustling of the wind through the boat's tattered sail, he heard voices. Sometimes they were the voices of long-dead fishermen, telling tales of being dragged to watery graves. Other times, it was the hissing laughter of some unseen creature beneath the waves, mocking his plight. He knew it was the solitude playing tricks on him, the mind's way of trying to fill the emptiness. But knowing that didn't make the hallucinations any less real, any less terrifying. He found himself talking back to the voices, arguing with the wind, bargaining with the creatures he imagined lurking below. It was madness, he knew, but it was a madness born of survival. If he stopped talking, stopped fighting, He felt like he'd be swept away by the currents of his own mind. He had a tattered picture of his daughter tucked into a waterproof pouch he kept around his neck. It was faded, the edges softened by seawater, but her smile was still clear. When the whispers got too loud, when the loneliness threatened to drown him, he'd take out that picture. He'd trace the outline of her face with a calloused thumb, whispering apologies for not being there, promises to return. He told her stories of the creatures he saw, of the storms he'd weathered, turning his nightmare into a fantastical tale a father might spin for his child. Her face, her imagined laughter, became his reason. His reason to fish even when his hands bled, his reason to drink rainwater that tasted of salt and despair, his reason to swallow down the bile rising in his throat at the thought of another mouthful of raw fish. He'd picture their reunion, the feel of her small arms around him, the smell of her hair. It was a dream, a distant light in the overwhelming darkness. For months, the horizon had been a cruel joke, an endless blue canvas, mocking his hope. Then one day, something changed. A shift in the light, a break in the endless pattern of waves. Jose, his vision blurred by sun and exhaustion, thought it was another hallucination. He blinked, his heart pounding in his chest, a drumbeat against his ribs. It was still there. A sliver of green, faint but undeniable, where the blue of the sky met the blue of the sea. Land. He didn't dare believe it at first. He'd been tricked by mirages before. His hope dashed against the rocks of reality. But this felt different. As he drew closer, the sliver of green transformed. Palm trees, swaying gently in the breeze, materialized from the haze. Then, a beach, white sand gleaming like a beacon against the turquoise water. His heart pounded, a primal rhythm of hope and disbelief. He'd made it. Against all odds, after an eternity lost in the watery desert, he'd found land. Tears, hot and salty, streamed down his weathered cheeks, a torrent of emotion he hadn't the strength to contain. The boat, battered but unbroken, carried him towards the shore like a message in a bottle tossed by fate. He stumbled onto the beach, his legs, weak from disuse, nearly giving way beneath him. The sand, warm and solid, embraced him like a long-lost lover. He was found by locals, islanders who had seen their fair share of storms, but nothing like this. They surrounded him, their faces a mixture of shock and awe, speaking a language he didn't understand. But their eyes, filled with compassion, spoke volumes. They saw not a madman, but a miracle. He was taken to a hospital, a place of bright lights and strange smells, where his emaciated body, covered in sores, was poked and prodded. They told him he'd been adrift for 438 days. Over a year. He'd lost track, the sun and moon his only calendar. News of his survival spread like wildfire. He was a ghost returned from a watery grave, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. But with the awe came doubt. Some called him a liar, a fraud. They said it was impossible to survive that long at sea. They hadn't seen the things he'd seen. They hadn't stared death in the face and bargained for their lives. They hadn't felt the weight of solitude crush their spirit, or the sting of salt water on lips cracked with thirst. He had, and that was all the proof he needed. Experts studied the currents, the weather patterns of the Pacific. They examined Jose's battered boat, his ravaged body. They said, yes, it was possible. Against all odds, it was possible. But survival took more than just luck. It took a different kind of strength. Jose's story isn't just about surviving the elements. It's about surviving yourself. The loneliness, the despair, the endless, crushing weight of the unknown. He stared into the abyss and found a reason to climb back. We all have that strength within us, that will to live. It's buried deep, maybe, under layers of comfort, of routine. But it's there, waiting to be tested, waiting to be unleashed. Jose's journey reminds us that the human spirit is more resilient than we think, that even in the darkest depths, a flicker of hope can guide us home. Bicham. So next time you're facing a challenge, think of Jose, out there on that endless sea, alone, but unbroken. Remember his story, remember his strength. We may never face a challenge as daunting as being lost at sea, but life throws storms our way, moments that test our resolve, times when we feel lost and alone. Jose's story is a reminder to dig deep, to find that strength within, to never give up hope, to keep fighting, even when the odds are stacked against us. Because sometimes survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. Sometimes it's about simply refusing to give up.